Welcome back guys to another figure walkthrough. Today we're going to be looking at Legendary Comic Book Heroes series from 2007. These figures belong to the Pit Wave. As you can see, a lot of these figures were from more obscure comics and graphic novels outside of Marvel and DC. Jumping into my favourite figure of this line, Madman. I'm not familiar with his comic books, however I think with this one you don't really have to be. The simplistic design is sometimes more, like less is more. The paintwork is very clean on this one. The hair looks like Gambit out of the X-Men, with the dry brushing throughout. There's only two places on this figure that has dry brushing, the hair and the gloves. We'll get into that in a minute. I really like how the face is very piercing. It looks almost like the Crow. The emblem is sculpted, however there is a little bit of colour difference in the plastic. That's the only problem with getting white figures, that they get quite weathered very easily because of the sun, but for the most part it's really nice. Look how detailed the gloves look with the dry brushing. It really makes the figure pop in my eyes. It's quite a juxtaposition from just the flat white all the way throughout. Reminds me of the Spirit and Will Eisner's work. Bit of a more surreal looking figure, reminds me of Freakazoid. Another thing to notice is how the boots are just matte black. Really nice, gives that pulp comic feel. And also there is a subtle blue hue throughout to give it kind of like cloth being spread over his body. It's really nice. Does give him a kind of ghost-like look. And there's also peg holes at the bottom of the feet. Only some areas of this figure are sculpted. The areas that are pop, like the emblem, the lightning bolt just below his hairline. Jumping into articulation now. Head goes left, right, and up and down quite far. It can fully rotate if you want to have him have more surreal moments when you're displaying him. There's no neck joint, however the arms go out this much, which is pretty good. Fully rotate, but there's kind of a ratchet to it. Bicep swivel, double jointed arms this far in, like upper wrist cut, and then there is also, oh no, there's no glove cut, however the fingers do articulate down because the figure was supposed to hold a sort of ray gun. I do not have it. The ab crunch goes this far forwards, just kind of ping back, and not back that far at all. There is a waist swivel, which on this one is very loose, I may say. Legs go forward this much, so you can get in dynamic poses, but you may need a stand because this one's quite hard to balance. Back this much and kind of out at an angle. You can get him in splits if you wish. A thigh rotation. Double jointed knees that go in that far. Boot cut rotation, which is really nice. And I really like the way that the boots drape over his legs. It's really cool. Gives a kind of creepy vibe. Down that much. No real ankle pivot, a slight one if you want to count that, and then toe joints. Moving on to a more relatively well-known character, Witchblade. Though I'm very happy to have her in my collection, I don't think it translates well into figure form. As you can see, this figure is a bit clunky in its sculpt, however I think it really tries to capture what the character did look like in this era. I do think her head kind of comes off as a mullet, and it isn't very flattering for the character. It's weird that you can't actually see her ears either. Very subtle dry brushing in the hair. The hair's very thick and it's sort of made out of a rubbery material. Kind of works against this figure. It really does impact its articulation. There's some sculpted bits added on as well as just deco, but I think it really just tries to get across the character's design. The gauntlet itself is absolutely exquisite though. They really tried hard with that. Though I really like that I've got this in my collection, I don't think they quite got it as well as how Todd McFarlane gets his female characters. Though it's in the same line as the other figures that I'm about to show you, it feels a lot more plasticky. Like the plastic isn't as heavy, so it's easier to stand. However, when it comes to posing, it's quite difficult to pose her in a way that shows her powerful stance. This, though it's very cool, it's only slightly rubber and it kind of hinders articulation. There's a little bit of mist paint as well, which is a little bit annoying. Though it tries to get across her kind of, I don't know, armour or like thorns, I don't know how to explain her powers really because I'm not familiar with the character. It comes off as more tattooy and tribal looking as opposed to kind of armour that is a part of her body. There are definitely parts that look really, really good. However, I think as a whole it comes off kind of clunky. I'll show you what I mean in articulation. Witchblade's head moves left this much, right this much because the hair hinders it quite a bit. Doesn't look up at all and looks down this much, but it has weird gappage from the side. This kind of gets in the way with her hair a lot. Though they're quite nicely sculpted, the sculpt kind of works against the functionality of the figure. For arms, this arm moves forward this much, which is a shame. Back a lot more, in and out this much, so both, whereas this arm goes further out. I'll show that one separately in a minute. Bends at 2 points in the elbow, but be very careful, these can break very easily because the plastic is very thin here. There's a slight hinge so you can get a little bit more motion in her wrist if you wanted to. This is really, really nice. I love how the dry brushing over the top and these kind of gooey alien bits look. This arm, because it hasn't got the shoulder plug, can fully rotate round, but it does come off a little bit delicate, so be careful when you're doing it with your figure. I don't want to break mine. That being said, they go in and out that much. And also be careful because this one here actually broke whilst I was filming. It goes in a little bit more than that, but be very careful. And there's also another hinge on this hand as well as the other one. It has a weird sort of upper breast cut. Doesn't go forward at all. Doesn't go back, it just kind of like goes from side to side. There is a waist sort of cut, but it doesn't kind of work with the figure. They have ball joints and you can see the gappage there. They go forward this much, back not really that much because the way the back is sculpted, in and out that much, which is quite a shame actually. You want her to be more acrobatic than that, imposing. There's a rotation here, upper thigh, double jointed knees, which is very nice, and there is a boot cut here. Ankles go down that much, up quite a lot. The gappage is kind of weird on this one as well, and then rotates from side to side only subtly, and then toe joints. I do like they are not symmetrical, and the bottom part of this figure is so intricately detailed, but it kind of gets lost compared to the rest. There's my review. Check back next time for Savage Dragon and Rip Claw. Thanks once again.